My school ranked me the ugliest.
My phone buzzed during third period, and I opened a notification under my desk expecting a meme from Wes. It was a group chat I'd never been added to, and the most recent message said, "El Mao, he's wearing the shirt again." I was wearing a blue shirt. I'd worn it on Monday too because it was clean, and I didn't think anyone noticed what I wore twice in a week. I scrolled up one message, sitting right next to me, and has no idea. That was posted 40 seconds ago. Someone in this chat was in this room. My eyes moved from the phone to the classroom and back to the phone, and my skin prickled because the messages were happening in real time.
Chat, what are you doing if this happens to you, chat?
Written by someone close enough to see my shirt and my face and the phone under my desk. I scrolled further, and the chat opened up into something bigger. A full scoreboard with every kid in my grade ranked by number. Categories next to each name. Most pathetic, easiest to manipulate, biggest try hard. I recognized the names. My thumb scrolled faster because the numbers were climbing, and I hadn't found myself yet, and there was only one direction left to go. I hit the bottom, my name in lowercase, 47 out of 47, with a single word next to it. Keeper, not an insult. The kind of word you use for a dog you keep around to make yourself look generous. I looked up from the phone. Wes was in the next
Whoever invited him to this group chat, bro, they gotta get into trouble, bro.
seat. He glanced at me and smiled, and his phone was face down on his desk with the screen still lit. I locked the phone and walked to the bathroom when the bell rang with my jaw so tight my teeth ached. I locked the stall, sat on the toilet lid with my knees up, and started scrolling. The chat had been going for months. My friends were betting on whether Zoe, my girlfriend, actually liked me or was settling, and one of them had written, "She's definitely settling. Look at him," with 4 laughing emojis from people who had smiled at me that morning. But then I hit the messages from Wes, my best friend, and my stomach flipped so hard I almost dropped the phone in the toilet. Wes called me a charity case in a message from 3 weeks ago. He told the group not to invite me to Hector's party because he'll embarrass us. A girl named Priya had been texting me, and Wes had messaged her directly. "He's unstable, stay away." When someone suggested I join robotics, Wes shut it down. "He'll make friends there and stop needing us." I read that last one twice. He didn't want me to have other friends.
Wait, so it's like the people that are making fun of them isn't his friends though? Hold on, chat.
The ranking wasn't just a scoreboard, it was a playbook. The higher your number, the more you got invited to. The lower your number, the more you got excluded from. Wes used it to decide who went to parties, who sat at the lunch table, who got pulled into group projects, and who got left behind. My number was a leash, close enough to the table to watch, never close enough to matter. He'd blocked every exit, every friend, every club, every girl who tried to talk to me. The only door left opened into his living room, and I'd been thanking him for holding it open. I pressed my forehead against the stall wall and breathed through my nose because I was going to throw up or scream, and neither one was an option in a school bathroom at 11 a.m. Lunch was a horror movie where I was the only one who could see the monster. Wes slid me half his sandwich and said, "You look tired, you good?" And the concern on his face was so convincing that a casting director would have hired him on the spot. I checked the chat under the table 2 hours ago.
Chat, that's an elf friend, chat. Loki, that's an elf friend.
Watch me play the good friend today. He eats it up every time. Below that, Priya texted him again, told her he's unstable. She backed off. I bit into the sandwich and chewed and smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm good," while the bread turned to paste in my mouth because I was sitting at a table full of people who had voted on my worth and decided I was furniture. After school, Wes pulled off his jacket and put it on my shoulders in the rain. "Take it. I've got a hoodie in my locker." The jacket was warm, and I wore it home because the rain was cold, and I wasn't ready to stop pretending yet. That night, the chat had a photo of me wearing the jacket with the caption, "Look at this kid in my clothes, El Mao. He'd literally be nothing without me." And
so Wes is setting him up though, chat. Wes is setting him up.
38 laughing emojis stacked beneath it. The jacket was still on me when I read it. I sat in my desk chair with the phone on my knee and the laughing emojis still burning on the screen, and pulled the collar up to my face and smelled the cologne and thought, "You gave me this. You put it on my shoulders in the rain, and then you made fun of me for wearing it, and I was going to burn this friendship to the ground and use your own jacket as the match." Zoe met me at my locker the next morning with coffee from the gas station, the cheap kind with too much cream that she knew I liked because she'd watched me make it once and remembered. She leaned against the locker next to mine and said, "I'm glad you found good people here. When you transferred, I was worried you'd have a hard time, but Wes really took you in." She said his
Also, Zoe's a W, then I think that's his girlfriend or something.
His name with warmth because she believed the story I used to believe, the one where Wes was generous and the friendship was real. She squeezed my hand and walked to class. I stood at my locker holding gas station coffee that she'd driven 10 minutes out of her way to bring me. My throat closed because Zoe was the one person at this school who chose me for no reason except she wanted to, and the chat was going to try to take her from me, and she didn't even know the chat existed. I called Wes and fed him a fake secret, keeping my voice so casual I deserved my own casting call. Dude, I think I'm failing chemistry. My mom's going to lose it. He was supportive, warm, perfect. I hung up and 40 minutes later the chat had it word for word. LOL, he's failing chem. His mom is going to flip.
Days.
This is going to be hilarious to watch.
So that proves it that he is the one who's typing. I bet.
Screenshotted it and went to the admin settings. The creator was Wes Barrera. The creation date was September, the same month he'd walked up to me on my first day at this school and put his arm around my shoulder and said, "You look lost, come sit with us." The chat and the friendship were the same age. He didn't become a bad friend.
Bro, Loki chat, if this happened to me, chat, I'm giving him a little bit of that 1-2 chat. Okay, nah. I don't condone violence. Let me not do that.
Was never a friend at all. I was the lowest rung on a ladder he built to keep himself at the top, and he'd hammered me in on day one with a smile and a half sandwich and "You look lost." A kid named Tate, who'd been ranked second lowest, shoved a boy into a locker outside the gym so hard the metal buckled and the sound cracked down the hallway like a car wreck. Teachers dragged Tate out while he kicked, and his face was purple, and he screamed things that had stopped being words and become pure sound.
What up with him?
By last period, I pressed my face against the office window glass while his mom signed papers with a pen she could barely hold. Tate stuffed his entire school life into a garbage bag. His face wasn't angry anymore. It was blank, the face of someone who'd been shrunk to a number until the number was all that was left. That night, the chat said, "One down, El Mao," with a crown emoji next to Wes's name. I looked at Tate's empty chair the next morning, and the chair was still pushed out at the angle he'd left it, and nobody had touched it, and my hands were shaking under my desk because Tate was the preview and I was the feature. I gripped the edge of my desk and stared at the pushed out chair until the teacher told me to open my textbook, and I opened it to the wrong page and didn't fix it because the words were swimming anyway. Wes threw a party that weekend, and a drunk kid the size of a refrigerator started shoving me against the kitchen.
Okay, bro, the size of a refrigerator, bro. I bet.
Wall because I'd bumped his drink. My back slammed the cabinet and bottles rattled. The kid pulled his fist back. Wes came out of nowhere and shoved himself between us, and the drunk kid swung. Wes caught the punch on his jaw, head snapping sideways, blood popping on his lip. He drove the kid backward into the counter, and the blender exploded off the edge onto the tile. "Nobody touches my boy," and the room went nuts, and people were chanting his name, and he turned to me grinning with blood on his teeth and wiped his lip on my sleeve, the sleeve of his jacket that I was still wearing because taking it off felt like tipping my hand.
Chat, why are you doing all of this, bro? Just for him, but he's also making fun of him on the group chat.
Locked myself in the bathroom and checked the chat. Wes had typed with his lip still bleeding. Had to play hero again, keeping my investment alive. I sat on the floor and looked at the blood on my sleeve, and for one terrible minute I considered deleting the chat from my phone and pretending I'd never seen it. Just walking away, letting Wes keep being the best friend I wanted him to be, and ignoring the one he actually was. The punch was real. The blood on my sleeve was real. The relief I felt when he stepped between me and that drunk kid was real. And maybe I could keep eating the sandwiches and wearing the jacket and pretending the chat didn't exist. The blood on my sleeve was still warm. The friendship was fake, but the punch was real. And I sat there on the bathroom tile trying to fit those two things in the same brain and failing. A kid from the chat walked up to Zoe at her locker and asked her out while I was standing right there holding her bag. He grinned at me over her shoulder like I was a coat rack. Zoe said no, and the kid walked away with "Think about it," and I checked the chat in the stairwell.
Zoe.
Upgrade, a thread where they were sending different guys at Zoe on a rotation to see which one could peel her off me. Wes started it. Let's see how long she lasts when she has options. I leaned my head against the stairwell wall and closed my eyes, and my fists were so tight my nails cut crescents into my palms because they'd turned my relationship into a group project, and the assignment was to take the only real thing in my life. Priya found me between classes. "Hey, this is weird, but your friend told me you had issues and I shouldn't talk to you." After Tate, I started wondering what else he lied about. She showed me the text from Wes. "Stay away from him. He's unstable. Trust me."
Now they can use that as proof, bro. Just go and tell the principal, bro.
Stared at it, and my chest hurt in a way that was different from anger, because Priya was cool and funny, and she'd reached out, and Wes had slammed the door before I heard the knock. I don't have issues, I know. She paused. For what it's worth, I thought you seemed cool. I was going to ask if you wanted to study for bio together. I would have said yes. Yeah, that's the worst part. She gave me a small smile that hurt more than any message in the chat, and she walked away. I stood in the hallway leaning on the lockers with my palms flat on the metal, because every person who could have been in my life had been turned away by the same guy who kept telling me I was lucky to have him. Zoe met me after school, and she was different. Arms crossed, eyes on the ground. Someone sent me screenshots of you talking about me to your friends. Private stuff. She held up her phone, and the screenshots looked real, but the words were written by a chat member pretending to be me. That wasn't me. Someone is lying to you. Then who? I couldn't answer without explaining the chat, and
bro, who's sick enough to do that, chat?
explaining the chat meant admitting my whole social life was a puppet show, and the puppeteer was the guy who just took a punch for me. She said, "I need space," and walked across the parking lot, and I stood there squeezing my backpack straps until the fabric dug welts into my palms, because the only person who picked me without Wes's permission was walking away over words I never typed. I sat on the curb in the parking lot with my head between my knees because my chest was so tight I couldn't pull a full breath. My phone buzzed. Phase 2 complete. I looked at the 2 words, and the casualness of them made me want to hurl the phone across the parking lot because destroying my relationship was a line item on their to-do list, and they'd checked it off with 2 words and a period. My mom found the chat on my phone that night. "Did you make this?" I tried to explain, and the words fell apart in my mouth, and she took the phone and grounded me. I paced my room, 8 steps wall to wall, and slammed my fist into my pillow because the chat—
Nah, don't slam that fist into the pillow, slam it into his face! Never mind. I don't condone violence.
Was still running in her nightstand drawer, and the party was in 3 days, and I was flying blind. The next morning at school, a girl who'd been ranked low walked up to me in the cafeteria. "Is it true you made the ranking chat?" I just stared at her because the rumor had jumped the fence, and I was being blamed for building the cage I was locked in. Across the room, Wes waved at me and patted the empty seat next to him. The wave was so warm I almost walked over because the habit was deeper than the truth. My legs almost carried me over before my brain caught up, because the habit of sitting next to Wes was 3 years deep, and hatred hadn't killed it yet. I took the phone back from my mom's nightstand while she was at work. The chat was on fire, a crowning ceremony at the party, a trophy with my ranking number engraved on it, designed to humiliate me in front of everyone we knew. Wes suggested it, and everyone agreed. I sat on my bed reading the plan, and my heart was pounding, but my hands were steady because the panic had burned off somewhere in the last 2 weeks.
Now you know what to do.
It was focus, the kind you get when you stop being scared and start being ready. I took a shower, got dressed, looked at myself in the mirror. The jacket was hanging on the back of my door. I put it on because the jacket was part of the plan. The trophy was going to be my microphone. The party was going to be my stage. I practiced my face in the mirror, the grateful, surprised face I'd need when they pulled the cloth off, and it was perfect because I'd been wearing it for 3 years. I walked into the party wearing the jacket. Wes grabbed me at the door. "My boy's here!" He squeezed my shoulders,
and I squeezed
back and smiled, and my pulse was slamming so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. But the smile was perfect because I'd been watching a master performer for 3 years, and I'd learned a few things. The trophy sat on a side table under a cloth near the kitchen entrance. I pretended not to see it while I circled the room, shaking hands and bumping fists and laughing at jokes that weren't funny, because 1 more hour of the mask was all I needed. I got a cup from the kitchen and held it without drinking because I needed my hands to look busy. I talked to a kid who'd written "easiest to manipulate" next to my name, and laughed at his joke about a teacher, and the laugh sounded so real it scared me. I talked to a girl who'd bet Zoe would dump me by prom and complimented her shoes, and she said, "You're so sweet," and I wanted to flip the table. I smiled until my jaw ached and my cheeks burned, and the party noise was a roar I had to shout over, while inside my head, everything was razor sharp and silent. Around 11, Wes climbed on a chair and clapped for attention. "We want to give a special award tonight to someone who means a lot to this group." He pulled the cloth, and there it was. My name, the number 47, engraved in the metal, and the laughter started. That rolling wave that builds when everyone is in on the joke, and the target is standing in the middle of it smiling like an idiot. Wes held the trophy out with both hands. "Speech?" I took it and looked at the number, looked at the 30 people laughing, looked at Wes and his big grin with the scar on his lip from the—
Now hit him! Okay, never mind, don't do that.
punch he took from me. Yeah, I'll give a speech. I set the trophy on the table next to the cloth. The room was still laughing. I walked to the side table where Wes had left his phone charging by the speaker, unplugged it, opened the group chat, and held it up so the screen faced the room. Nobody could read it from that distance, but the gesture shut people up because they could tell something had shifted. I threw the phone across the room to a girl named Danny, who caught it against her chest with both hands and stared at me. Read the message with your name in it. Danny looked at the screen. Her mouth fell open, and she read the words out loud, and her voice shook, and she looked at the person who wrote them, and the person stared at the carpet. Wes lunged across the room, and Danny threw the phone to a kid by the window. Read yours, I said. The kid caught it, scrolled, and his whole face rearranged from confused to furious in 2 seconds flat. He threw it to a girl on the couch. She read hers and stood up and pointed at the person who wrote it. This is what you think of me? The phone kept flying, hand to hand across the room, and every catch was a detonation. A boy read his entry, and his smile died, and he threw his cup at the wall so hard the plastic cracked.
So they weren't the ones who were typing it. It was that West dude.
A girl on the arm of the couch read hers and pressed her hand over her mouth, and her eyes went red. A kid I'd never talked to caught it and scrolled and found a message about him from his own girlfriend, and he looked at her across the room, and she looked at the floor. Each toss ripped something open that had been stitched shut.
Oh,
Wes
they
was chasing
did.
the phone around the room, shoving past people, knocking a drink off the coffee table that splashed across somebody's shoes. He grabbed a kid's arm, and the kid yanked free and threw the phone over Wes's head to someone behind him. Wes spun, and the phone sailed. He lunged and missed and crashed into the bookshelf, and a picture frame fell off the top and shattered on the floor. Every person who read their entry backed away from him, pressing against the walls, and the circle around him got wider with each toss until he was standing in the middle of his own party.
Now everyone should
within
jump
5
in,
feet of him.
Nah,
The
never
music
mind,
was
okay.
still playing, but nobody could hear it over the silence of 30 people reading what their friends actually thought of them. Wes cornered me against the kitchen counter, breathing hard with his collar stretched from someone grabbing it. Why are you doing this? Because you ranked
did
me.
it
He
first.
grabbed my shirt with both fists and yanked me forward, and we were close enough that I could see the vein pulsing in his forehead. It was a joke. Jokes are funny, Wes. I was protecting you. From what? From Priya, from Robotics Club, from every person at this school who might have actually liked me. His mouth opened and nothing came out. You didn't protect me. You managed me. You decided who I was allowed to talk to, who I was
But why this West guy look so chopped though, bro?
allowed to date, where I was allowed to go, and you called it friendship. His hands were trembling on my collar. Hit me, I said. Go ahead. You took a punch from me at the last party. Might as well throw one now. His jaw clenched and his fists tightened, and I watched the war behind his eyes, the part that wanted to swing and the part that couldn't, because 3 years of acting like my brother had gotten into his bones too deep to shake. Behind him, a girl holding the phone said, "Guys, look at this," and read the creation date out loud. September 14th. A beat of silence. Then someone said, "Wait, isn't that when you two became friends?" And the room went dead. 30 people doing the math at the same time, looking at Wes, looking
I
at
was
me,
setting
looking
up.
back at Wes. Zoe near the door whispered, "Oh my God." A kid who'd been part of the chat put his cup down on the nearest surface and walked out the front door without saying a word. September was when Wes walked up to me on my first day and put his arm around my shoulder. Wes told that story every time he introduced me. I found this kid looking lost, and I took him in. The room had heard it a dozen times. Now they heard what it actually meant. He took me in to keep me down. His hands dropped off my collar like the fabric was electric. I pulled the jacket off, one arm at a time.
Throw it at him.
Watched me do it because every person in that kitchen knew what the jacket meant. I held it in both hands and looked at it. The collar was still warm from my neck. The blood stain from the party was still on the sleeve. I dropped it at his feet on the kitchen tile, and the sound it made was soft, barely there, and somehow louder than anything else that had happened all night. You told me I'd be nothing without you. Let's find out. I walked through the room. Nobody was in my way because they'd all stepped back, pressed against the walls and the furniture, and the path to the door was wide open. I walked past the trophy on the table, past the speaker that was still plugged in, playing to nobody, past Danny, who was holding the phone with both hands and staring at the screen like it had bitten her. I pushed through the front door into the cold. My arms were bare and the chill bit into my skin. I sat on the porch steps, and put
Holy
my head in my
tough.
hands because the adrenaline was draining, and what rushed in behind it wasn't victory. It was grief, heavy and dull, sitting on my chest like a sandbag. 3 years of lunches and late night calls, and him taking a punch with blood on his teeth. None of it was real, but I'd loved it, and that part was real. And losing a fake thing you genuinely loved still hurts. The front door opened, and Zoe sat down next to me. The necklace around her neck, the one I gave her, the one she'd taken off when she pulled away. I heard everything. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. You don't owe me an apology. They do. She put her hand on my knee, and her fingers were warm. The thing he wrote about being scared, nobody would talk to him. I saw it. Do you think any of the friendship was real? I thought about the punch, the blood on his teeth, the wood chips during the bookshelf, the sandwich every day at lunch. Parts of it were real. The parts where he forgot he was performing. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It was. We sat there while the party emptied behind us. Car doors slamming, engines starting, headlights sweeping the yard. My phone buzzed, and Wes had posted one last message in the chat. He was never supposed to be in this chat. I showed it to Zoe. She read it and looked at me. You were supposed to be a secret they kept from themselves. I deleted the app and put the phone in my pocket and leaned my shoulder.
Don't delete the app for that,
the cold
bro.
was biting my arms where the jacket used to be, but Zoe's shoulder was warm against mine, and the warmth was small and specific, and it was enough.